great host. First, I want to thank President Ali and his staff for taking such good care of our team. The President and I had a wonderful dinner last night and a great meeting. Our two countries, the United States and Guyana, have been friends now for over 5 decades. But this is the first official visit from an American Secretary of State. You have my commitment. It will not be another 50 years. As I said in Kingston in January, in some remarks that I gave there on the United States and the Caribbean, quote, now is the time to move forward with even closer ties. I meant it then, and this trip, our meetings are proof of that. And what a moment to be in Guyana. We know that Guyanese people cherish democracy. They cherish freedom. They value free, fair, and transparent elections, just as Americans do, just as all people do. I was proud to publicly support the Guyanese people in their quest to have the results of the election respected. The results certainly took longer than any of us would have wished or hoped, but it was worth fighting. It was worth fighting to honor the people's sovereign decision. That's indeed what democracy is all about. Congratulations, President Ali. Today, we also had a good set of conversations on strengthening our relationship for the benefit of all Guyanese and all Americans. We're ready. The United States is ready to be your partner. Your partner of choice as you face big decisions moving forward, especially on energy and future prosperity in your country. That's how Americans will help produce local jobs and sustainable growth for the people of your country. You should know that the United States AID, works as part of the State Department, is on the same page too. I'm proud to announce this morning that the agency has committed $3 million for a locally led program for citizens' involvement in the government, and $1.5 million so that the youth of Guyana will be involved in democracy as well. I must say, as I watch and I listen and I've been reading and preparing for this trip, the Guyanese are leading their nation's journey to self-reliance. You should be proud of what your government is achieving for you. We just signed a new agreement on the Growth in Americas initiative. Guyana is the second Caribbean nation to join that agreement. It demonstrates that the United States wants to model the private sector, not state-owned enterprises, because that model, that investment model is superior, will deliver real good things for the people of your country. It'll bring both those jobs, frankly, jobs to America as well, and it'll increase cooperation on environmental issues, just like potential spill responses. The last economic piece our governments are working on is to increase trade and foreign direct investment here. The President mentioned catfish. I used to catch catfish when I was a young man. One great thing is that we're getting the information that's needed. We'll work with you. We'll put it through the U.S. regulatory process and the WTO review process, and I'm confident we can get a good outcome. There's a lot of places where we had a chance, where we'll work hand in hand. Our new security agreement to counter narcotics trafficking, something that has decimated so many nations all across the world, will enter into force on Monday. Our law enforcement, American law enforcement, can now cooperate against traffickers at sea. This will make the entire region and Guyana even safer. Finally, we talked about the need for democracy in Venezuela and an end to the illegitimate Maduro regime man who's denying that very democracy that the Guyanese people so love, denying that democracy for the people of Venezuela. You've been a strong partner for us on this issue. You've supported statements through the Organization of American States and through the Lima Group. The United States has now allocated $5 million to help Venezuelans in Guyana who have had to flee from Venezuela to Guyana to escape the horrors and brutality of the Maduro regime. I trust that cooperation will continue, and I want to express my personal appreciation for Guyana's hosting of the Venezuelans that have crossed inside of your country. I'm confident, Mr. President, we'll keep working together. We'll do great things alongside each other. I'm grateful to see that you share this view of the importance of our relationship. And thank you again for hosting me.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary of State, and welcome to Guyana. We'll now take a few questions from our media corps, and we'll take the first question from our Guyana. Neil Marks, you see your hand up.
Good morning. Mr. President, can you talk more about the scope of the Growth in the Americas initiative? Are you interested in prioritizing particular areas at this time? And I was curious about the State Department's briefing on this issue, and it's talked about sovereignty. Are you looking, is America going to support Guyana's exclusive economic zone? And Secretary Pompeo, if I could ask, the International Contact Group on Venezuela has said the circumstances are not right for EU observers to go into Venezuela. I was wanting to know, what else do you see the European Union doing on this issue? And quickly, your Undersecretary for Economic Affairs is in Taipei, and Chinese aircraft is soaring in Taiwan. I'd just like a reaction to that, please.
Thanks, Neil. Yes, Mr.
Thank you very much for those questions. First of all, the framework agreement, as I would have said, gives an excellent opportunity not only for the mobilization of capital, U.S. capital, and the mobilization of the U.S. private sector to participate in the wide-ranging economic opportunities and infrastructure transformation that will take place here in Guyana. But more importantly, it has to deal also with the transfer of knowledge, the transfer of technology, cooperation or building capacity between the U.S. private sector and the local private sector, and taking the partnership beyond the two governments to the private sector, so that you will have greater integration of the private sector and greater participation. And that is what we want. We have a large diaspora in the U.S. We have great opportunities here, and we want to see more investment. We've said this before. We want to see more investment and more private sector interest from the U.S. So I think this agreement not only sends the right signal, but set the foundation for that collaboration, cooperation, transfer of technology, and more importantly, building of local capacity here in our local private sector. In relation to our exclusive economic zone, it is not only from a maritime perspective, because we would have raised also with the Secretary radar coverage of our exclusive economic zone, which is critical at this time. We have had various difficulties, and I think we welcome any help that will enhance our security, that would enhance our ability to protect our borders, and importantly, enhance our capability and ability to ensure that we go after criminal elements. And this allows us to do that. It strengthens our capacity, and it builds that partnership and gives us that additional capacity that is so needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Secretary of State, would you like to respond?
Yeah, so I'm happy to answer your question, but I want to echo something that President Ali said. The two agreements we signed this morning are not disconnected. With greater security, greater capacity to understand your border space, what's happening inside your exclusive economic zone. Those are all things that give Guyana sovereignty, the capacity to control its space, and the rule of law, property rights, the things that you all value, democracy. These things are connected. I will say this too, that there was lots of conversation about how there might be more foreign direct investment from the United States. Sometimes I hear, oh, we don't want foreign direct investment, we're concerned about our sovereignty. I would posit this for everyone watching today. The United States model is to build out on the best things of your country. We'll show up, we'll bring capital, we'll bring resources, we'll often bring technological capabilities that are much needed to develop resources, develop infrastructure for your country, but we don't do so with political strings tied to them. We don't operate the way other regimes do. We might show up with money and then demand political retribution, or worse yet, engage in activity that is corrupt. That's not how American foreign direct investment operates. It comes in, we have private sector leaders. You'll see they're disconnected. They're not connected to our government. These aren't state-owned enterprises that come and invest here in Guyana. These are private sector companies looking to make life better for the Guyanese people and to do a good turn for their company as well. So it's very encouraging to see the request for more foreign direct investment, not just in the energy sector, but across a broad range of opportunities that are going to be presented to the people of Guyana as they make their way through consolidating their democratic election. Second, you asked about the contact group in Venezuela. We know two things. We know that the Maduro regime has decimated the people of Venezuela, and that Maduro himself is an indicted narcotics trafficker. This means he has to leave. For the people of Venezuela to have the democracy that they need, the Cuban security forces must go, and Maduro must leave. And so the efforts to do that, to put diplomatic pressure and to support the Venezuelan people who desperately want that same objective, are the aims of the contact group with the EU, the Lima group, the OAS, the United States, dozens of countries that have made clear that Juan Guaidó is the duly elected leader of Venezuela. This is the objective. We want democracy, freedom, and the rule of law, just in the same way we fought for you all to achieve that for yourselves. We want to fight for that to be achieved by the people of Venezuela as well. And then your final point was about Taiwan. We sent a delegation to a funeral, and the Chinese have apparently responded by military blustering. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary of State. I'll invite my colleague.
Yeah, for the next question, let's go to Sean Tannen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for doing this. Can I follow up on the energy issue, asking about Exxon? Exxon, as you know, has a major oil discovery in Guyana. Can you discuss this directly? And the arrangement itself, do you feel that it's equitable? Do you feel that it's fair for Guyana? Is it something that you want to move forward on? And how do you, for Mr. President, how do you look at the long-term consequences of having this growth in oil revenue and the risks? Therefore, as you see in some of the countries, the natural resources track field of energy growth, of energy wealth. Mr. Secretary, if I could follow up on one point, there's quite a bit of news today, of course, about TikTok. I wanted to see what you thought, whether you think there could be a resolution, whether you think that TikTok will be permanently banned in the United States, or if the current proposals that you see, if they could work to safeguard American security. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your question. First of all, we did not discuss issues surrounding Exxon. As you realize, I did not address those issues. But I want to say that Guyana is open to investment. We're open to investors. We're open to, and we're open to in a transparent manner. And we have said, even prior to the elections, that there are issues that we'll have to review. And as you're aware, we have at the moment a review in terms of the Payara license that is being done. And we have subjected ourselves to professional guidance. And at the end of that review, the government, of course, will have to make an informed decision. Secondly, we've also committed ourselves to arm's length relationship with the management of the sector from a political perspective. So you would not see, for example, a petroleum commission that is controlled by politicians. The management of this resource must be done by competent and qualified technical persons who can ensure that we get the best output from our oil and gas resources. But for us, oil and gas is a great impetus to the more macroeconomic vision for our country. It allows us to build, to expand and to create an environment in which our traditional sector will become competitive, and also gives us additional resources that we can transform the country from an infrastructure perspective, but more importantly, in building out the new economy that was focused heavily on knowledge, the knowledge economy, ICT, health and education as export commodities, expanded our agriculture. We have a massive market in CARICOM that we can take advantage of, but we have to become competitive. We have to have economies of scale. So the resources will help us to grow these sectors, that will bring additional wealth, create new jobs, and expand economic opportunities for our country. That is what is important for us. So oil and gas, I can assure you, will be managed by technically competent people. And of course, we are now relooking at the Sovereign Wealth Fund. To take away, there was a legislation that was passed that had tremendous powers onto the minister who was responsible. We have to remove that, remove those overwhelming power that is assigned to the minister so that we can have greater transparency and accountability in the management of this sector. But we are committed to supporting investment in the sector, and we are committed in ensuring that Guyanese benefit from these investments. That is why we've established a technical task force to look at local content and to see how we can not only support the local private sector, but how we can build a capacity and ensure that they benefit from local content. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. I'll follow up on that. This is the American model. The negotiations with the Guyanese government are between Exxon and the Guyanese government. Look, they've encouraged us to assist in foreign direct investments. We'll do the things we can to help American companies be successful, have access, have opportunities to engage in fair and transparent business dealings with Guyana. And then we did speak about one piece of this, which is that we want to make sure that the same things that President Ali just talked about happen. We want